Ha ha ha, he he he, you are here and so are we. Ha ha ha, he he he, you are here and so are we. Right, thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on the show today. We're really, really happy to have you on the podcast. How are you? You okay?
Yeah, good. Thank you so much for having me, Lucy. It's a pleasure. I'm doing all right. We were just discussing. So new dad. So I'm a little bit tired. I'm a little bit sort of a bit shocked to be in the world every day. But yeah, good. Also in that newborn bubble. So also delighted every day.
And a lot of our listeners will be nodding and probably in exactly the same position as you, Ryan, because we've got quite a lot of new parents that listen to the show. So I'm sure that they can relate and they will be nice to you and be kind. So, first of all, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and FunFest?
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, when you become a new dad, everything else becomes very secondary. So the concept of thinking about myself is a little alien at the moment. But yeah, so aside from being a new dad, I live in Bristol. I've got a partner, a beautiful partner, mum to my little boy Arthur. Her name's Hayley, and yeah, we've sort of built a life here quite recently, really. So we've got a new house of only a year ago, new baby of only 2 months ago. Um, I know, so that's quite new. But aside from that, you know, in terms of you asking about FunFest, so FunFest, a journey I've been on for a whole lot longer, since 2008. When I was a whole lot younger, had a lot less facial hair going on. Yeah, so FunFest is a children's holiday club with a really wide range of activities that children get to choose from, and it was something I fell into really when I was a bit younger. You know, I didn't intend on going down the childcare path. I'm the eldest of four, so I'd always been around children, but this holiday club near me popped up, and before you know it, we're what now 16 years later, and I've been on a long journey with FunFest, doing all sorts of different roles. But it's a brilliant company to be a part of, genuinely. And aside from the sort of wide range of activities that we do for the children during the holidays, sort of why FunFest a little bit different, I would say, to your average clubs is that we specialise with the early years children. So we like to. Certainly, a lot of the people we employ and a lot of the fellow directors are really early years experts.
Brilliant. And that's something that, so for a lot of our listeners at home, I think the early years aspect will be something they probably haven't heard of, because I know when I was kind of researching for this podcast, I was very familiar with, you know, clubs for school age children, but kind of these early years, I suppose that makes you different and makes you stand out from the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. So I won't get into too much of the detail of it, but I guess the reason behind most holiday clubs not being suitable for early years is because you have to apply for an early years Ofsted application, which just means you have to meet higher standards and jump through certain hoops for Ofsted. There's sort of a 4-hour nominated individual interview you have to do. There's some more intense inspections that you have to go through. So understandably, a lot of clubs choose not to do that, and that then means that you can't take 3 and 4 year old children. So when we're talking about early years, I'm sure a lot of people will know that means children under 5. Um, but it means that you can't take those 3 and 4 year olds across the day. You can only have them for a few hours at a time. So being sort of on the early years register, we can have the children all day, but it does mean we have to meet slightly higher standards. Absolutely.
And it's so early years we're talking about, as you say, is 3 and 4. So before they've started school, perhaps at preschool, nursery, that type of thing. Do you have to kind of I know this isn't on my questions, I was just thinking, do you have to kind of abide by the having a certain number of people looking after a certain number of children and things like that with that age group?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So we have strict ratios, so 1 to 8 ratio, especially with those younger age groups. But you also have to have certain level of qualifications. So a level 3 childcare qualification, So somebody with that qualification has to be working directly with those early years children. And then you have to have a paediatric first aid trained member of staff on site as well. Now, as the numbers go up, the ratios, the sort of qualifications slightly change. But yeah, ultimately, you're absolutely right, Lucy. The level of qualification and the level of sort of expertise working with those children does have to be higher than it does have to be with older children.
Okay, that sounds brilliant. So we'll talk a little bit more about kind of the FunFest and what they entail in the clubs a little bit later. But I'm just interested to find out a little bit about your background and your journey. So you started FunFest at 17, is that right?
That is right. That is right. Yeah, that's correct. That was a while ago.
Back. Can you share how you, because is it kind of a franchisee business? Am I right in thinking now that you're a part of?
That's absolutely right. Yeah, so it's a franchise limited company. So in the same way that a Subway or a McDonald's works, if you wanted to buy into the company, then there'd be an interview process, but you could go along and have a franchise outlet. Exactly the same for FunFest. Um, and yeah, in terms of my journey, so yeah, I'm chuckling there when you say 17. So that I've now been, I'm 34 now, so I've been in the business as long as I've not been in the business, which is crazy to think. But yeah, at 17, I was at sixth form in Solihull in Birmingham, and I saw an advert for a new holiday club that was just starting up. I'd recently done a football coaching badge, and I thought I could use that to secure myself one of my first jobs and maybe be a bit of I don't know if expert is the right word, but I could help the children with the sports side of the clubs. So I went along and got the job, which I was super grateful for. We didn't. I think it was just a new company at the time. So the founding managing director Sarah had just started this holiday club as after having a nursery, and it was all brand new. I think my interview was done in a music cupboard in a school somewhere. But I got it, and then it worked really well for me. It's a holiday club job while I was still in education. So while I wasn't at sixth form or then at uni, I was able to work in the club. I started as a play assistant and sort of slowly worked my way up whilst coming home during the holidays. And then I got the opportunity when I left university. So Sarah, who I've referenced, the sort of founder of FunFest, said, "Well, I'm looking at opening a second club. Are you interested in doing it?" I've been to uni and done psychology. I had no intentions of running a childcare business, but it was an opportunity I felt like I couldn't turn up. So yeah, I took it on, and we opened a second club. So the first one was in Solihull, the second one in Sutton Coldfield, and that was back in 2014. So I just got back from travelling. I finished university, took this opportunity to open another holiday club, and it worked really well. So off the back of that, we then started speaking about, well, how do we grow it from here? We had many meetings in Sarah's kitchen and dining room, and thankfully, she literally knew someone who had written a book on franchising, which was a very useful expert to have in the room at that point. And we spoke about franchising, which I knew very little about at the time, Lucy. It was an alien word to me, to be honest. But it seemed to fit perfectly. It meant we could offer all our expertise and our knowledge of how to do this, but also grow at a faster rate with locals' knowledge. So we could expand out of Birmingham and go sort of further afield without needing to do it personally. We could get locals' knowledge from Manchester, London, wherever it might be. They could come in, see our model, and then replicate it there. And it's so we became a franchise limited company a couple of years later, and as they say, the rest is history.
Amazing. And I think when people think about kind of being a franchisee or that side of things, you almost think of potentially an older person that's potentially had some career and wants a bit of a change and wants that maybe work-life balance. So you doing it at such a young age, do you think was that the right thing for you? Are you glad you did it at the younger age? Were you able to kind of use your experience from university and maybe your experience perhaps being more of a young person with marketing, social media, that side of things? Do you think that helped you at doing it at kind of a younger age?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so. It's a really good question. I think asking that question, why do people enter the franchise world at an older age, is a really interesting one. And I'm not going to suggest I've got all the answers, but obviously finances are a factor. So typically a franchise, they're all different price points, but you'll need an amount of money to start it. But if we ignore the finances, then what are your motivations for anything? So what are your motivations for having the job you have? Well, for me, so my dissertation at university was about workplace well-being. So I've always been a huge advocate for finding that balance between your personal life and your work life. And obviously, if they can work really closely together, then that ultimately will not only give you a happier person, but will give you much better results in your work as well. So in the set, it really evolved naturally for me, as I've just said. It happened upon an opportunity. But in terms of, for me personally, I was always fiercely independent. I was always keen to sort of take managed risks, and that I think I would encourage for anybody. If you're looking at doing something for you, if you're looking at wanting work to work for you, then franchising is an excellent opportunity. Because what I didn't know when I was at that age and when I didn't understand franchising was that it gives you all the independence of being your own boss, but with far less risk, because you're not, obviously there's a lot of statistics around startups and their failure rate, unfortunately, in the early years. So franchising, because you've got a proven model, then those risks are far less. Yeah, for me, it worked really, really nicely, and I see it work as well. So you're right. A lot of people enter franchising later, but I've also been lucky enough to see, certainly with our model, a lot of people start thinking about entering franchising a lot earlier, and it therefore, seeing it work for them, in a, like you rightly say, in a lot earlier point of life than maybe it would have done otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And what would your advice be to any kind of, as I've mentioned before, we've got quite a young audience of young mums, young dads, or maybe not even parents, but quite a younger audience listening. And what would your advice be to them if they're thinking, actually, this is something that I'd be interested in? I'd be interested in exploring this more, this work-life balance, this well-being in the workplace. I don't want to work for someone else as such, like going 9 till 5 and have to do that. What would your advice be?
Ooh, good question. So, I mean, other than I would say always do your homework. Just like I'm a new parent, but I haven't had the practice of saying that repeatedly yet. But I would say do your homework. Look at what's out there. Look at the opportunities. There's loads of different brilliant franchise opportunities, brilliant children's franchise opportunities. So do your homework, have a look. That nobody's going to tie you into a contract by making a phone call or by looking on their website. So start by doing that, but also ask what do you want from it. I would say, what is it that why are you looking down this route? What is it that you're looking for? And then does the does the company you're looking at marry up with that, with what you're looking for? Do the goals of the company align with yours? Do the potential, the ceiling of the company align with what you're looking for? So a really brief example: if you're looking to be involved really actively in a day-to-day job, does that work? Does that line up with the company, or with the prospects? Or actually what you're looking for is something part-time, so you want to continue to work your current job part-time, but you want some part-time work on the side. Does that work? Or are the values of the company the values that you hold true to you as well? So yeah, I would say marrying that up, but also do your homework is really important.
Absolutely. And I guess it's worth noting that with franchise businesses, there is the you kind of can do as much as you want to do, if you know what I mean. Like, you've got that option. You don't have to work full time, you can hire people in your areas and things like that. So you've got a lot of flexibility to do as much or as little, not as little, but as much as little as you would like. So it's very flexible. Would you agree with
You're absolutely right, Lucy. Super flexible. With any business, it's going to need more of your involvement to begin with, and then you'll be able to step away from it slowly, which is exactly how it works for me. I took it on and alongside my work, so I was doing the FunFest stuff on evenings, on weekends, taking annual leave to work in the club to build it up to begin with. Um, but equally, you're right. You can come in and get more or less involved depending on what your end goal, what you want from it ultimately is.
Yeah. And do you find it's worked really well at the stage of your life you're at now? Having a new child, you've been able to have that flexibility.
I couldn't recommend it highly enough in that sense. So, ultimately, I've now built a business. So I have, as I'm a franchisee, so I've got two holiday clubs that run up in Sutton Coldfield. I live in Bristol, so I'm not even that close to them. So, I've got a network, a fantastic staff team that run those clubs for me. Now, I visit regularly each holiday period, but ultimately, those businesses to have much less of my day to day involvement, and therefore mean I'm able to be a dad to my beautiful son Arthur, to play football, which is a big passion of mine, to go on holidays, to find a balance in life, to do the things that are important to me, as well as having my business and managing that on a regular basis. So, yeah, I would absolutely agree with what you said there.
Absolutely, that sounds amazing. So let's talk a little bit more about FunFest. So FunFest offers a wide range of activities. So what makes this kind of stand out for parents and children? Why would they pick FunFest for their little ones?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The wide range of activities is definitely unique to us. So most clubs will do different activities, but not many will do the range we do. We do over 100 activities over the year. So you're talking everything from go-karting to laser quest, circus training to jewelry making, all the crafts, all the sports, and everything in between. But ultimately, I would say it's being child-led. So whatever the child's needs are, whatever the child wants, then we give them that opportunity, and we're always giving them a choice. So if you had a look at the FunFest website and had a look at a timetable coming up, you'd see that in each age group, there's not one activity each morning or each afternoon. There's always at least two. So the children can select what they want to do each morning. Now, I was lucky growing up. I love football. There's loads of sports camps around. So my parents sent me to those, and that was easy. But that's not true for everybody, typically growing up for me, I don't know about you, Lucy, but I remember dance clubs, drama clubs, and sports clubs. And if they weren't for you, then there maybe wasn't a lot of choice. Also, for parents with different children of different ages, different interests, then it was difficult to sort of send them. So FunFest there, specialises with offering children lots of different activities that suit their needs, but also works for working parents, because you can send all your children to us, and hopefully they can. It's a bit of a one-stop shop in that sense. They can all get something very different and very enjoyable from it.
Absolutely. I love the idea that it's child led because, as you say, if you didn't like dance or football when I was kind of a little one, that was it. You couldn't really, there wasn't really much else to do. So it's brilliant that you kind of incorporate all these different activities for the little ones. You mentioned obviously parents working. Is that the main reason that parents will send their children to FunFest? Or do you find a lot of parents actually see the benefits in these extracurricular activities and send them for those reasons as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say a little bit of both. I think to be practical because of the cost of living impact and the current economic situation in the country, I would say we're seeing more parents through the doors that need us than want us, but absolutely a combination of both. So you're able to book as little as a half day, so kids can come for just a morning or just an afternoon. Equally, of course, they can come for the full day and the full week, and they can bring siblings along with them. So that enables parents to just book, let's say their kid's really interested in football camp, or they're really interested in doing the laser quest session. They can just book onto that if they want. But equally, majority of parents are looking at us as a solution for them whilst they're off to work or whilst they're busy during the holidays. So they're able to send them for multiple days over the holiday period. Or, like I say, in some cases, we have children across the full 6 weeks of summer.
Oh, wow. So do you run every holiday, or is it summer holidays or every holiday?
Yeah, pretty much every holiday. Sometimes not Christmas, depending on. So we've got 42 clubs around the country, so every club is different. But yes, pretty much every holiday.
So you mentioned a little bit before about kind of being having to be Ofsted registered and having that additional so it maintains this safe environment for the little children. How does that differ to having the older children? Is there a lot more? Because I know a lot of mums at home might be worried, or like my little one's only ever so small, like sending them off. Is that gonna, are they gonna like that? Are they gonna be worried? Have you got other things in place to help perhaps more nervous children or shy children, that type of thing?
Of quality, like in this country, so we use it for it's the Office for Standards in Childcare ultimately. So that, if you're looking at a childcare setting that is Ofsted registered, and in our case on the early years Ofsted register, so it means, again, we have to meet those highest standards for the youngest children, then that in itself should provide some level of reassurance, because when they do their checks and their inspections, they check on everything from safeguarding practice to risk assessments, from the DBS, the criminal record checks, through to your insurance and everything else. They also ultimately, these days, so an Ofsted inspection, more than it ever used to be, is now really less about the paperwork and more about what is this childcare looking like today. They're really interested in what does this look like today. Is this good quality? Is it child-led? Are the children engaging? Are the children in a safe environment? And how are they being nurtured? So certainly Ofsted is a mark of reassurance in that sense. But for us, yeah, we're always putting the safety of children at the forefront of everything we do. So whether it's, like I said, all of that criminal record check, making sure we've got the right ratios, the right qualifications of staff, the right risk assessments in place. There isn't a higher standard that we could need to meet, and in that sense, when you've got all of those boxes ticked, and when we provide the regularly updating the quality that we look to provide across our settings, and parents can send their children to us in the same reassurance they would have with a good school or a good quality nursery.
Brilliant. And details of that, they can find that when they book and read more on that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see all of our information on our website, but also you can independently, and it's the same for any childcare registered Ofsted setting, you can look for the latest inspection reports. So if you, for example, had a look at FunFest Sutton, we've got clubs in Warmley and Four Oaks. They were both inspected in the summer of 2023. So you can find that full report online. That's available for the public to see. So there you can see then an independent review, not just a very biased FunFest review of what we do and the qualities that we meet.
Amazing. And then just for children that might be a little bit nervous to start with and things like that, is that something that you kind of welcome and you support children with?
Yeah, for sure. So it's very natural for children to be nervous or anxious in a new setting. What I've learned over my far too many years with FunFest, Lucy, is that it's also just as natural for parents to be nervous and anxious. And I think it's then finding that balance between, of course, parents don't want to pass that anxiety on to the child, but equally they want to be reassured themselves. So yeah, for us, we are used to upset children and upset parents as well on the first day, or in those, the early hours of the morning when they're being dropped off. And then it's about, putting all the right steps in place to reassure the child, making sure they feel welcomed, making sure that we're being child led. What are their concerns? What are their worries? Listening to those, hearing those, making sure they feel supported, welcomed, they're shown into the room, they're shown into their group, they're shown to their friends, or if they're brand new to their setting, they're given that extra little bit of warmth and attention. And then, like I said, we also make sure we're providing that same warmth and attention to nervous and anxious parents as well. So obviously they might have to leave straight away, but we've got a phone on site, so you can always call and update. And we would encourage parents, especially with children who were particularly nervous at drop off, to ring us up, check on how they're getting on, whether that's in the morning or throughout the day. And then hopefully that provides a little bit of reassurance before you come and collect them at the end of the day.
And how do you ensure that these activities are age appropriate? And I guess you're constantly researching them and, working with parents and getting feedback and that type of things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So we do a lot of research. So just last holiday over the October half term, one of our head office team was in Solihull speaking to children about what it is they want from the setting, what it is they're looking for in terms of adding new activities, what's current. It'd be silly of us as older adults to be suggesting that we know what's current or what's relevant for children. So we've got to ask them. Absolutely. And then we link in. We try and offer all those different activities, always refreshing the what we think the children need, what the children are telling us they need. And then, of course, we directly link that in, especially with the early years children. We directly link that in with the EYFS, so the early years foundation stage, the 7 characteristics of effective learning. I'm sure a lot of listeners out there who have been in and around childcare will know what I'm talking about here. The characteristics of effective learning. And the 7 areas of learning and development. And so we directly link that into every activity we do. To make sure that there's that support and that nurturing aspect, and that children not only are here to enjoy themselves, but they're also learning every day.
That's fantastic. And do parents kind of get an update or a report of what they've learned over the period of time or they've been doing?
Yeah, so there isn't a physical report that you might get from a school, but you get some constructive feedback, if it's the right term, at the end of the day. And yeah, we give, especially with the younger children, we give them parents a lot more feedback. Maybe similar to how you would, similar but not the same to how you would at a nursery. So giving them feedback of what they've been doing, how they've eaten during the day, what their activities were, how well they engaged in it, have they made any friends, all those sorts of things.
Amazing. I think it's brilliant. I think it's really brilliant. A lot of parents at home will be thinking, gosh, this is a great solution for those summer holidays, those long summer holidays. Even if they're not working, but they want something educational for their little one to do, something different. I think a lot of mums and dads at home will be very interested. So what can they do if they are interested? Where can they go and find more information?
That's it. You're absolutely right. We're on all of the platforms. You'll obviously find our website online as well. So it's fun-fest.co.uk. And yeah, hopefully you'll find. I mean, each of our clubs has got its own homepage, so you'll see all of the opening hours, typically 8 through to 6. You'll see all of the prices, the associated discounts. You'll see all of the dates that we're open across the year, and all of our locations on there. Not to mention all of the different activities that the children can do.
That's brilliant. And I will pop all of those details in the description box below. And so finally, looking ahead, what is next for FunFest? I'm sure you've got lots in the pipeline, lots of plans.
Absolutely. So, if I spoke to you before about the journey I've been on. We've only been a franchise limited company for 7 years now. So, it's still relatively new. So lots more growth, really. So we want more clubs, we want more franchisees. So that's something that's always on the cards. And a little bit of a closer look. So something we're directly working on as a head office team next year is expanding our offering for our 8 to 12s age group. So we're really directly working with, you've spoken a lot about the early years today, and I have as well. So that's definitely where we're experts, but we're looking at increasing our offering to the older age group as well. And expanding what that looks like, giving them more independence and making sure that we're a holiday club that's suited for the children from 3 all the way through to 12.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much today, Ryan. I've had such a nice conversation and I've really, really enjoyed our chat. Thank you for taking the time out to kind of talk with us.
Not at all, Lucy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.